When trauma hits home, our heart is shattered, our world is shaken, and our existence is numbed. Does finding a gain in each loss still apply? What good can we find in grieving? Today's discussion, I welcome guest entrepreneur, founder, and owner of Long Island's Hopeful Heart Solutions, bereavement counselor Gwen Russo, and also powerhouse country singer-songwriter Morgan Miles is here with us. I'm your host, Amanda Ashley, and this is Afternoon Cocktail, episode 52. Good grief. Welcome. I love it. So, Morgan, welcome. How are you? Got you on
I'm
mute.
good.
Oh, there you are.
How are you?
Good. You're a busy little thing. Thanks so much for giving us your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So what are you going to perform for us?
Well, I think since we are talking about kind of on the subject of just different types of therapies in our life right now, I thought let's start with the title track of my album, Therapy.
Yeah, it seems appropriate. Take it away.
All right. When the needle falls down on the vinyl and the grooves don't even move me, when I can't turn off my mind, you flip a switch and give me high. Four walls of silence can be so lonely, but you're lying next to me. I'm safe as I can be. I can let go now and fall apart, 'cause you're my rock, strong as stone. When my world is out of control, the way that you heal me when I'm down and desperately, when my soul needs a remedy, baby, you're my therapy. And when the proof in the whiskey don't fix me, and a buzz ain't enough to numb reality, and worrying's like walking around waiting with an umbrella when there ain't no rain, and Lord knows I can be my worst enemy, yeah. But you make me love myself in a way that I never felt. I'd be lost if you had never found me, 'cause you're my rock, baby, strong as stone. When my world is out of control, the way that you heal me when I'm down and desperately, when my soul needs a remedy, oh baby, you're my therapy. Oh baby, Cause you're my rock, baby, strong as stone. When my world is out of control. The way that you heal me when I'm down to desperately, when my soul, oh no, needs a remedy. Yes. The way that you heal me, oh no. Baby, you're my therapy.
Woo, girl, artist
I don't know.
straight from the car performance. I love it.
Does it sound bad? I can't tell.
No, not at all. You sound amazing. Your vocals are so incredible. Your range.
Oh, thank you.
What is your range? Do you even know? I mean, you hit those
I
high notes
think-
like Mariah, girl.
Apparently we did a thing one day just because somebody was really curious. It was my management at the time, and I do have a 5-octave range, and so
I knew it had to be something crazy. Yeah, your voice is incredible.
I don't know. Thanks.
So, I mean, where does that come from? Do you come from a musical background?
No. I
Wow.
literally have nobody in my family is musical, so it is just kind of an odd thing. But my parents have always been super supportive of having me follow my dreams, so I can't complain about that. So
Sure, that's a lucky thing to have, for sure.
absolutely.
So you were born and raised in Pennsylvania. You've been living out in Nashville for a while. Where are you right now?
I'm in Georgia. Making my way. Yeah, we're making our way to a really, really small island off of Hilton Head Island called Defusky in South Carolina. So we're just playing a really teeny private event tomorrow night. So yeah, you have to get there by ferry, and there's only golf carts there. So it's really a cool little unique spot. So this happened literally 4 days ago. They were like, "Can you do this?" And I'm like, "Let me check my schedule. Let's make it happen. A show? Let's do it."
Right? In true artist fashion, you make it happen.
Hey.
That's so funny. Yeah. However, I mean, I'm sure your course has been altered with, everything that's been going on with coronavirus. I mean, have you had, you like everybody else has lost out probably on a lot of shows. So are you feeling extra eager to be performing?
So this month in particular, I was actually, right now I would be on a USO tour in Okinawa, Japan. And then we were headed to continue that to go straight to Australia. And then home, we would get back, and we had another 20 shows to end the year. But fortunately, I think most of those are getting rescheduled for 2021, and think life could be worse. And I think that's why I'm just stay busy, try to, I'm starting a bunch of different things just with people so that I can, just stay focused on what's to come versus what's lost. Because if I go there, then I'll be bummed out.
Sure. I mean, I think you're looking at it the best way you possibly can. Are you finding it easier or harder to keep creative and inspired during this time?
I'm staying, it's a little bit of both. There's been moments of kind of a yin and yang, but I think that's just who we are as creatives anyways. You go in ebbs and flows of what's what you want to talk about. And honestly, I'm not in the mood to go sit here and talk about the depressing part of COVID. So really, we've been more in the recording studio from songs that we wrote prior to COVID. So, I have no reason to want to sit and really write out what I'm feeling about COVID. I really am in this mood of writing a lot of upbeat songs for what's going to come in 2021, when we're all ready to be together again, hopefully. And everyone is going to want to be let out of these, in lack of better terms, cages, so that we can just be together and appreciate one another. So we're writing a lot of upbeat music right now, because I just think that's what we're all going to want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. That's awesome. So, let's talk about something exciting. So you had actually opened up for one of your idols, right? Reba McEntire? You toured with her?
I did. She's one of the kindest souls. I mean, I've opened for so many, but I really respect Reba McEntire in a huge way because of just how humble her heart is and just who she is as a person. I mean, she really is what she comes off to be, and that's always so nice when you can meet an idol and they're even better than you had already worshipped them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna ask you, like, did she live up to your expectations? Like, were you totally geeking out when you first met her, or like, how'd you compose yourself if not?
So I was playing for an artist. I was a utility player, playing Mando and acoustic guitar, BGVs, and the person I was playing for was treating me really, really horrible on the road. And we had been out with Reba for weeks, and so Reba's like band ended up being like my parents. Well, one day I'm sitting at catering, and Reba comes up to me and she's like, "Hey girl, are you okay?" And she sat down next to me, and I mean, she's the one running the show, and she's so busy, and it was like, wow, she just actually has like such a caring, giving heart. And then from then on, like the band would be like inviting me back in Nashville. You just want to sit and watch rehearsals and all this stuff that they just didn't have to do. Like she's just really sweet.
That's so awesome. I love that. What about I also read that you interned for Taylor Swift. I mean, what was that like?
I was interning for her when during her first record, or first and second record. It was interesting because she was so sweet, so young. I mean, I was the girl getting her pantyhose and stuff
So funny.
but she was so sweet. I remember she got me a Christmas gift just to make me feel like a part of the team. And I remember her walking in and sits down next to me because I was kind of going through magazines to pull out clippings of what she's been in. And she's like looking at me, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "I just feel like everybody's upset that I'm not wearing my boots with the sun." Just such a little girl, and like what she's turned into be is just such an empire. And she's smart. She's a very smart girl, and really kind, and just very normal. But yeah, I mean, she knew how to be vulnerable in herself, and every little girl like could be her, and she just blew up. It was really cool to see.
So, yeah, I saw her after her documentary. Like, I mean, I always respect her as an artist, but it's so weird seeing Taylor Swift as an adult. Like, don't you
Yeah.
still want to look at her like she's like 13? You know, it's so
I
funny.
think I'll always see her that way. Like, I think I'm
Yeah.
probably forever locked in that first impression that I had, so it's
Yeah,
weird. It's
that's
weird.
so funny. Yeah, it was like she was talking about kids. I'm like, you're not supposed to be talking about children, Taylor. You're still 16.
Yeah.
But just makes me feel like I'm getting older by the minute. But so anyway, so you have, I mean, you were very heavily interested in music business. So I mean, like working, kind of firsthand with these humongous stars. I mean, how did that change your whole perspective on music business after like going to school for it? You went to Berkeley and then you went to Belmont. But to actually be in the music business, I mean, how does that differ from your studies?
I was so intertwined with while I was getting educated and in college, I was so intertwined with being a part of, like, I was always interning everywhere. I was always playing music and writing songs while going to college at the same time. So it's kind of like everything was happening at the same time. I always learned more by being involved in being in a like action, doing stuff. So the internships I felt were always more viable than just sitting behind a desk. Now you start applying both like without knowing. But the biggest thing, especially in the music business, it's relationships and really, just kind of figuring out this crazy networking town and the politics of it. I mean, that's such a huge part of it. But also being brave enough and smart enough to balance yourself as an artist and knowing the business without letting the business take you over. And that's like a really fine line for artists that have a business mind. It's like bittersweet, so
Sure.
it's definitely protected me through a lot of really bad situations because there's a lot of greedy people in this town that take advantage of artists, and you gotta keep your head on straight without seeing the stars when they offer everything to you. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy being a woman in country music, especially right now and for the last decade. So you really have to have an amazing work ethic and an amazing head on your shoulders. Otherwise, you're probably going to be done real quick.
Yeah, I could just tell by our correspondence and just seeing, like I've been pretty much stalking your social media since I booked you. So yeah, I'm a huge fan. I really am. I've been listening to your music for like a month. I just think you're like, I love your voice, and
Oh
your
my God,
music's
thank you.
outstanding. Very, very heartfelt, very true and honest, and I respect that. So all right,
you.
let's get into today's theme a little bit. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but
No.
today's theme, we're talking about grief, and like your first song is therapy. You actually, so this is kind of serendipitous, because when I originally booked you for the show, I didn't know much about you. I heard one or two of your songs, and I thought you were amazing. I was like, and I reached out to you, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she actually got back to me. So that was my initial thought. But then I started thinking about grief a lot, because every day I turn on my social media, and it seems like for as many birthdays there are just as many people grieving, over the loss of somebody, or maybe they're just going through, a loss of a job. Like everybody's experience. There's a lot to be experienced in this moment. So I thought of this topic, and my best friend referred me to Gwen, and I booked you guys both for the same show without really knowing your backstory. So you've personally experienced a lot in the past few years. I mean, how did you see yourself musically through these difficult times?
Again, music became my therapy. I really couldn't, if without music and my faith, I don't think I would have been able to kind of heal from these scenarios, because there's nothing better than going through helpless situations like deaths, or, my cousin at 33 was going through brain cancer. I mean, he died at 33 this time about 2 years ago now, who was my best friend. And you feel very helpless in those times. So, I mean, I probably wrote 60 songs about the situations in that year's time about him, just to kind of therapeutically heal myself through the process of something that I had no control over. And I just think it's one of those things that music has so many healing powers. And I think that's why it's such a great thing that we're able to release music right now and still get out there and still try to reach people, because people are grieving. And they, I think maybe prior to COVID, people would have thought, wow, she's got quite a heavy record because of this loss of her cousin, because of some of the stuff she's been going through. But it's odd that I was finally able to release it January 2020 when all this happened, because I really believe there's a lot of songs on there that are just meant for people to take and hold their own and put their life and what they're going through, and hopefully it heals their hearts and brings them to a better place.
Sure, I definitely believe that, like all our stories are in some way, especially as musicians, like we're natural born storytellers. If you're able to write music, right? I feel like it's almost like, without being, I'm really not a religious person to be honest. But like I always considered music very spiritual, and in the way it carries itself and the way it translates to different people. And I definitely hear that and see that in you. And I think that's really special, because what you're writing will definitely translate to somebody and heal their heart, I think, in some ways. What part, I read that you actually questioned your music, in during your grief and grieving. I mean, what actually drove you down the path of questioning, that whether or not it was your purpose or you should be doing it?
The management company that I ended up in, I've never been pushed and disrespected to just a place of being a shell of myself. And I think I kept fighting and fighting. And I finally just got so beaten down I mean, my manager, now my ex-manager, knew how to find every personal piece of me. He realized, say, all the external things didn't really bother me. He believed every artist has mental issues and you need to break them down to build them back up. And boy, did he go after me hard. And I still don't know why. I think that's always the question. Like, if I'm successful, you're successful, what was this whole point of controlling me? And getting to a place of calling me an effing moron before I would walk onto a stage, telling me I was fat. All those things didn't really bother me until he started to get personal and wanted to bring my parents in to, I guess, scold them on the music business. And I'm very protective of my family. And I think that's just finally where I drew the line. And I said, my cousin ended up getting really bad the same time that he got caught for embezzlement charges. So everything was kind of just coming to an end. But God gave me such a great perspective when Mac, here I am sitting looking at my cousin that I'm going to lose. And I was just like, it was just a crazy time in my life. And I looked at my manager because I just was like, I don't want to do it anymore. That's the only thing you can't control. I have the right to say if I want to do something or not. And that was my way of trying to just get away from him. But then when he got fired, I was able to leave and I got out of it. And then I realized when I started, it took 3 months for me to listen to the album again. Because I wasn't able to release it. My masters got completely legally caught up. And so I went back and I realized that those songs were my babies that I had written. Like, I believe I wrote for Mac the day he went into end of life therapy. I mean, I couldn't even catch my breath and I was in LA writing and I wrote this song. And after I walked out writing that song, I was like, this is the song that will be played at the funeral. Like, this is it. And so it was just such a really heavy time for me. And I think why I was questioning it was because my mom always said, when the music doesn't make you happy anymore, then we're done. And it wasn't the music that wasn't making me happy. It was the manager that was just, it was like this devil that just wouldn't leave me alone. I couldn't get away. I was so controlled. And I couldn't understand why these things were being said to me and why I was being so disrespected and treated. And I was like, wow, I finally had my like, wow, the music business is really bad. I couldn't believe how smart I am and everything that I had ended up in such a bad situation, in other words. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's probably easy to fall into that trap, like when you have people, I mean, you're so talented, and you have people, you want to believe that the people that are taking on a position like that are leading you and guiding you in the right ways, not abusing you. So I don't know, you are so smart. I'm sorry you ended up in that situation, but thank God you're out of it. And it seems like a lot happier and in a better place. And
yes,
that's what matters, right? And I'm sure you've learned a lot. Yeah.
I did. And I realized you don't need certain people. I mean, again, I always just wanted to work with people, with a team. I'm not ready. I will never just sign up to be completely told what to do. That's just not who I am. And there's some artists that love that. Like, tell me where to be, where to go, what to do. I'll be your puppet. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just more creative and I have too many questions of things that I want to do to be disrespected in a way to trying to be controlled. So, that's just kind of, I learned that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hard lesson to learn, but like, good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you. Like, I think that's excellent. Like, Morgan, where can our audience be directed to your music?
Everything, if you just go to morganmileslive.com, my socials are there. They're all Morgan Miles Live, but I'm on iTunes, Spotify, all that, but everything's Morgan Miles Live.
Yeah, I love it. Well, you're wonderful. Thank you for giving us your time. We're going to hear one more song from Morgan in the end. In the meantime, I want to bring in Miss Gwen Russo. She's all the way out representing Strong Island for me. Gwen, what's up?
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm really
thank you so much. Yeah. I think this topic is so important, because, you and I had talked a little bit before the show, And, it's just grief is something we're all experiencing or have all experienced or all will experience at some point. And I think it's good to have these talks. Can you share with our audience just a little bit about you, your background, and what it is that you actually do?
Yeah. So, first, like I said, thank you for having me on here. I never miss an opportunity to talk about grief. For me, I walked away from a 17-year career as a speech pathologist about 3 or 4 years ago. And I became an interfaith minister. Part of that was in my training there was end of life work, grief work. Still never thought that that would be anything I wanted to do. And I also became a certified professional life coach, as well as an advanced grief recovery method specialist and a trainer for the Grief Recovery Method, Grief Recovery Institute. And so I am the owner and founder of Hopeful Heart Solutions Grief and Wellness Services. And basically, what we do is we do one-on-one sessions with people, taking them through grief recovery. We do workshops, we do life coaching, spiritual coaching, just a bunch of stuff. But predominantly what we do there is grief.
Now, when we talk, I mean, grief comes in so many different forms, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the loss of, someone close. It could be the loss of a career or, just somebody losing themselves down their path. Maybe a loss to drugs, right? Do you find yourself, treating more people for grieving for the loss of a loved one or relationship wise or is there kind of a balance between both?
Yeah, and thanks so much for even recognizing the fact that, it's so funny that, when people hear what I do for a living, they're like, oh, wow, that's so sad. Like you work with people who've, lost loved ones. And absolutely, a lot of people make their way to me because they've experienced the death of a loved one or what we call like a less than loved one. And so, but the truth is there's over 40 plus losses that do lead to grief above and beyond death. And some people will think like breakups or divorce. And what you want to think about is like grief is really just about change. So whenever there's an end or a change in a familiar pattern, there's a loss of what was, and we're going to have conflicting feelings around it. And so with that, I mean, if you think about change, just dealing with, you were talking to Morgan earlier about, COVID and everything that has changed in our lives since COVID has entered our world, so, just about loss of connection, loss of safety, loss of trust. That's the thing too, is like you can lose things, you can lose people, you can lose jobs, you can lose, homes, but there are these intangible losses. We can lose hopes, dreams, and expectations. We can lose trust, hope, safety, connection, love. And so with that, those are things that a lot of times we're not even realizing that we're dealing with. And so when something like COVID hits, and it really knocked a lot of people off, coupled with all that isolation, the truth of the matter is it's sitting on top of a lifetime of grief, and most of the time people aren't even realizing that that's what it is, and the way in which they're going about getting help that they may need may not be the correct path for them, because they're not recognizing that really the etiology is years upon years of unresolved grief.
So interesting. Yeah, I mean, what inspired your path to specialize in grieving?
Yeah, it's such a funny story because, by the way, my famous last words is whenever I'm somewhere and I walk into a room and I'm like, oh God, I would never do this. Like that's actually what I'm doing. It's just the way it works. So I remember being in seminary. I went to One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in Manhattan. It was a 2-year rigorous program. And I remember when they had people coming in and talking to us about grief and end of life work. And I was like, oh God, I would never want to do that. Because it's so sad and it's so heavy. And with that, I had opened up a small office in my house while I was still a speech therapist, and to do spiritual counseling. And interesting, anybody that came to me was suffering with grief. And so I tried to put into practice what I learned in seminary, which was to be a really good listener. I offered what I thought was helpful advice, which wasn't always helpful. And what I found was that people, although they were feeling better when they were with me, week after week, they kept coming back. and saying things like, Gwen, I hear what you're saying, but you don't understand. The last thing I said to my loved one, was we had unkind words, and it wasn't supposed to go down this way. And I just don't think I'm ever going to get over this. I can't get over this image. And so what was happening for me personally is I wanted desperately to help these people, but I was carrying a lot and I was burning out. And I realized I really wasn't helping them. And there had to be something above and beyond what I was doing, which is where I found, my way, I say, divinely led to grief recovery. And really, when I was introduced to grief recovery, which is an action program for loss, that's when I really started seeing that people were not leaving me the same way they came, and walking them through actions, to heal their heart is really what I started to see, that these people who started in such a dark place were able to get complete around this unfinished emotional business, things they wished had been different or better or more, and they were healing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what is the most powerful thing you've learned throughout all of your practice? I mean, like, what's the most powerful thing you've learned that has maybe like impacted the way you guide others through grief and healing?
I think that one of the biggest things that I've learned by doing this work is that you never know what people are walking around with. I like to say that, from the minute we're born, it's like we come into this world with this tiny little backpack and it's empty. And from the moment we start walking and start interacting, we start experiencing loss. And some of the losses are small and some of them are bigger, but we're not taught really how to deal with them. So what happens is we start to accumulate this loss, and this backpack starts to become really, really heavy. And so what I realized when I started working with people and through the process that I take them through, they, get to see that although whatever loss that brought them to me was significant, it was really sitting on top of all of these years of unresolved grief, from years upon years. And so what I think I've seen with working with people is you never know what's in everybody's backpack, and everybody's got a story and everybody is suffering with unresolved grief, whether they know it or not. And, like I said, if they happen to make it to somebody like me who can really help them, that's great. But to just try to really be kind and compassionate and see the world through grief colored glasses while I'm wearing my compassion hat. And that's from Laura Jack. She's one of my mentors. But yeah, but just the fact that everybody is walking around with a heavy load. So be kind.
And but speaking of compassion, that was one of the things I think of, because there's no time limitation on grief, right? Like nobody is allowed to just grieve for, X amount of time. It's a process. So, I mean, for those impacted secondhand by someone who is just completely devastated and obviously experiencing difficulty overcoming their grief, what advice, lending to that compassion, would you lend and lead one to become more supportive and empathetic?
So thanks so much again for bringing up the time factor. I do not adhere to the stages of grief, and that's a whole nother topic. I think grief is unique and individual. And one of the biggest pieces of misinformation out there is that time heals. And the truth of the matter is, time heals very little, if anything. It's what you do within that time, it's the actions that you take. And most people don't know what those actions are. And so if you have somebody in your life who is experiencing a significant loss, one of the things that I say is, grievers are not broken. They don't need to be fixed. What they need is to be listened to with dignity and respect. So resist the urge to try to fix, resist the urge to try to give advice, because the truth of the matter is you can't fix it for them. You can listen with compassion. You can point them in the direction if they ever ask, as far as, maybe seeking extra help. But just know that when you lose someone you love, or like I say, a less than loved one, or somebody's going through a hard time, it is normal and natural to feel sad. We live in a society where it's all about positivity and like gratitude. And I don't have a problem with that. But the truth of the matter is if you are alive in this world and you're living this human experience, there is pain and there is loss. And the normal and natural reaction to a loss is sometimes sadness, is sometimes anger, is sometimes frustration and fatigue and difficulty sleeping. Those are common grief reactions. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong. Grief is not pathological. It's a normal and natural reaction to a loss of any kind. So, just resist the urge, like I say, to tell people what you think that they should do, or that they should look at it this way and be grateful that you had them for so long. Just listen, because they just want to talk. And then hopefully, if they're open, to make their way to somebody, like me, who can really help them deal with any of the unresolved and unfinished emotional business, which is really where the pain sits. So, yeah.
Gwen, do you believe there's any good that comes from grief? And if so, what do you think it is?
Provided, I think that provided somebody gets to deal with the pain, so that pain does not start to negatively impact their life in a way that can really be very life limiting. I think that if somebody does take a loss that they've experienced, they find their way to do the healing work and take the actions that they need to heal their heart. We often hear sometimes of this, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but there is something that also can occur, and it occurs only through difficult times, and grief can be one of them, is called post-traumatic growth. And so I have seen this when I work with people and they're willing to do the work, they're willing to heal their hearts. Oftentimes they come through some of the darkest, most difficult times, having learned something, having healed their heart, sharing their experience with others. And really, not that they wanted it, but they kind of walk through, and sometimes are given this clean slate as far as how they want to maybe recreate their lives at a time where they never thought that they would be there, that they can start to claim their circumstances, and instead of their circumstances claiming them and their happiness, and they actually can come through and really empower themselves to create a new life that they never expected to be in.
Gwen, do you think for somebody that just feels like when it rains it pours, like they're having a hard time dealing with one thing, and then you just start to feel that snowball effect. We've all gone through it, right? Where you're just like, oh my God, like why is this all happening right now? You're devastated, you can't pick yourself off the ground. Where do you start? When does it start to sink in for somebody that, okay, like maybe a friend brings them to you, but like for somebody that feels so helpless in a situation, what's the best advice you could give them to begin trying?
Yeah, and I've experienced that with people where they, some people, they don't really recognize that it was loss they were experiencing all along, but sometimes people have what I call been pummeled with loss, like it's just one loss after another. And, I think that when that happens, to number one, be gentle with yourself. And the fact, anybody that comes into my office, by the way, I emphatically tell them that you being here is what's right with you, not what's wrong. And again, that they're not broken, they don't need to be fixed. It's just that they've basically figured out what the rest of the population maybe hasn't yet, is that even though they've been pummeled with this grief, and they recognize it as grief, which is, again, above and beyond what most people even recognize, that just about everything they've ever been taught about what to do or how to deal with their grief is abnormal and unnatural. So we hear things like, you just got to keep yourself busy, and you just got to give it time, and you got to be strong for this one. And, it's just, those things don't work. And so having said that, if that doesn't work, and yet it's universal, that's what we're all told. And, nobody wants to think about grief. Nobody wants to talk about it until it happens. And it's like right in your face. You can't sleep, you're not eating, you're overreacting to things, you're exhausted, you're foggy. And so I think it's just a matter of recognizing that you reaching out for help is not that you're weak, it has nothing to do with that. It's just that everything you've ever been taught about what to do with your grief has been, and on top of the fact that we are not given a safe place, we are all taught, like, be happy, be positive, be joyous, be free, but life isn't like that. And so coming to me, what I help people do is normalize what they're going through and recognize that them being here, they've just, like I said, figured out that whatever they've been taught, whatever their family and friends who are trying to help, what they're telling them is it just doesn't work. It's the wrong tools. And what I help them do is give them the right tools, and walk them through the process where that they can actually, one loss at a time, really heal their heart from the inside out.
So informative. Thank you so much, Gwen, for your time. And I know we have to let you go because you have an appointment very soon. But I just want to, so our audience, you don't have to be in Long Island to go seek Gwen's help. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Where
So
could,
we
go ahead.
so we do offer online services, individually, and groups as well. So if you are, I'm based in Comac, Long Island. You can find all of our information at hopefulheartsolutions.com. You can also like us and follow us on Facebook under Hopeful Heart Solutions, always posting things. Just launching a new program called Surviving to Thriving, which is done either as a standalone program, strictly online on your own, to be done with grief recovery or not. So there's a lot of exciting things that we have coming up and different programs that we offer. So yeah, just give us a call. You can schedule a 15-minute free consult. Call us directly. Just call.
Hey, go do that. If you need to talk to somebody. This girl, this woman will do wonders. I know that firsthand from one of my best friends. So thank you, Gwen, so much for lending your advice, and yeah, good luck with everything. I wish you very well.
Thank you so much. It's so good to meet you guys. And Morgan, you
Yeah.
were amazing. And I love your
Yeah,
song.
right?
I need to know where to get it. So
I'll make sure we all keep in touch. So thank you. Thank you so much. And Morgan, come play. Could you close us out with a good solid song? Bring us
Absolutely.
happiness.
Gwen, I'm going to be calling you very soon. I have a family member that I really need. Literally, this came up yesterday. So that was so informative. Like, I think everything happens for a reason, because that's so cool. I'm going to close it out with Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a song just kind of about coming together love-wise, and yeah, it's about faith and faith in one another, right? Here we go. From a parking lot in Georgia. Some days it's hard to believe in love at all, yeah. But I know salvation is real, and I'm in your arms. Even in the darkest night, you shine a light, and I know inside. Oh, sanctuary. Your love is the only shelter I need. Yeah, yeah. Oh, sanctuary. You're my refuge, my place of peace. I know that there will be storms coming my way. With you by my side, boy, I know I could walk through the rain. Yes. Clouds can't hold back the sun. He will run when I come undone. Oh, sanctuary. Your
amazing Morgan Miles. Make sure you guys go download her music and check her out on Spotify. You could groove to her with me. By the way, we started, Morgan, you're amazing. My gosh.
Thank
That
you.
voice, girl, take me to church with that voice. Kill them tonight at your show, all right?
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
good.
Y'all are awesome too.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good luck at your show. Gwen and Morgan, thank you for bringing so much beauty to a pretty dark topic. As always, in true Amanda fashion, I'm going to leave you guys off with some of my thoughts. I always try to look for the good in everything, and sometimes it's not so easy to just find and dig the good out of, you know, topics like grief, where people are hurting and feeling very deeply. So, but when I think back to life's most shattering moments, I mean, the common good I was ever able to draw from my experiences was the experience of having had known someone, having had known the feeling of something. I mean, the lessons earned, the resilience gained, the underlying meaning it reveals. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, maybe. Is grief's purpose to draw out our strengths by weakening us? I mean, to make us feel the sorrow in order to be more empathetic to those mirroring our own experiences, to appreciate the fragility of the lives we are given, and to maybe not take for granted the people that color our lives with purpose. I don't know. I mean, this I don't know for certain, but for all the great assumptions we can juggle, the one certain thing that we have is that there's no getting around grief. It's not something we could plan for. It's not something we could help ourselves from reacting to. But it is the one thing we all share in common and that we all will experience. I believe that grief is our greatest teacher, that it is present to teach us our values, how deep we can love and feel love, to challenge us so that we can learn and relay our experiences to benefit others, to teach us the meaning of our lives and, you know, the meaning of the lives that we carry, and to impact the impact that each of us have on one another. Wholeness and meaning are hard won, but finding meaning isn't dependent upon comprehending the why or the what of it all. Paradoxically, it is as we learn to live without knowing the whys that peace and meaning emerge. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you to Beau Productions, and to shout out to James Farley of Northwestern Mutual, to Maiden Voyage Studios. Thanks again to Compeer Rochester for your support, Salvatore's Pizzeria, and Electronic Merchant Systems. We will see you back here this Friday. You guys have an amazing day.